Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Enter the Ether, the podcast all about the upcoming third-person MOBA Ethereal Clash of Souls. I'm your host, the Mangoose. Joining me, as always, is my friend JellyKnees. How you doing, Jelly?
I am good, Mangoose. I have my normal voice back, which is a great feeling because up until like yesterday, I still was missing my voice. So good
People
to be
noticed
back,
too.
man.
People noticed that you were feeling a little sicky, a little under the weather.
Yeah, man. Hey, I'm glad to be here though. So what about you?
Doing good, doing good. Just been playing the shit out of that Blood Hunt game. That's like my jam now.
Mangoose is a BR player now, everyone. It's official.
Apparently so. All
And a
right.
10-cent BR, no less.
Oh yeah. Ugh. When I was researching and then I saw that they'd been acquired by Tencent, I'm like, oh fuck this.
Perfect.
Tencent probably just acquired them so that they wouldn't compete with Fortnite.
Uh-huh. Probably.
Anyway,
Awesome.
that's a completely different game. We're talking about Ethereal here. So what we want to talk about this week, we want to talk about what questions you guys would possibly have for a community corner, and we also want to talk about the improvements that we can see from like the Talos video to the Malaia video. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
definitely been a lot of improvements made to the game, and testers, of course, see and experience those improvements, but we can see just massive improvement just on our own, just watching those videos. So that's what we're going to talk about this week. I'm going to tell you the thing that jumped out to me the most was the particle effects for buffs.
Mm-hmm.
Like like you got the spinning like lights for just regular buffs, but then you got like a Chinese dragon floating around you for the wyvern buffs. That's like I was like mesmerized. I don't know if I would want that buff because I was just so like, ooh, like hypnotized by that dragon spinning around Malaya. I couldn't even pay attention to anything else.
Yeah, I mean, so those dragon buffs was something that we knew the generic effects of just having like fire and ice coming off of somebody doesn't look the best, right? And it's not super clear in comparison to some of the other buffs. Like with if you had red buff and fire buff, they could get easily confused one way or the other. So something we were looking at was how do we make that way more distinct? How do we know very clearly like that guy's got the fire wyvern, that guy's got the ice wyvern. And so those dragons were kind of the response to that. And I so far people have been liking them. I love them. I think they're great overall. But just a kind of a quality of life clarity thing was the main reason to change those.
They're pretty cool looking. I definitely like that there's a different buff. Do you guys have something like that? I didn't happen to see the Atropos buff. Is that different too?
It is not different yet, but it is something that's in the works that it will also have its own distinct buff that you'll be able to know very clearly that person has the Atropos buff.
Will it be a little Atropos flying around you in a circle? That
I
would be
can't say. I
awesome.
can't say for sure.
So, and you wrote down quite a few of the changes that we may or may not have noticed. The first change you put up there, I definitely noticed, was the HUD rework. So
Yeah, I
it
think, that's a
completely
little bit
changed.
easy to notice on screen. Just a smidge.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it takes up less space. It's kind of opaque, so or not opaque, but translucent, so you can still see what's going on, but still see your ability cooldowns and everything. Um, yeah, from your experience, has playing with a new HUD improved your gameplay at all, or
Oh, it's so much better. It's so much better.
yeah?
It's one of those it's like you said that it's you can see more of what's going on. It doesn't take so much screen real estate, so it's a big thing there. It's also a little more intuitive of in comparison to other MOBAs. MOBAs almost across the board have pretty solidified areas to look for certain things, right? Items are usually on one of the bottom corners. Minimap is bottom corner. It'll be different depending on third person versus top down, right? But your abilities is bottom center. Usually your team and the enemy team are on the top left or right. The timer is in the top middle or top right. Like there's some pretty easy things that even our original HUD was kind of missing a little bit, that we kind of changed that and updated it to more fit those standards and make it a little more intuitive for users, as well as just look and feel better across the board.
Right.
I think the biggest thing that came with that HUD change was the buff like tracker on the left side of your screen. Um, There's now, I mean, every buff and debuff is tracked on the left side of your screen that you can look over and see, okay, I'm slowed for 4 seconds total, or I'm empowered for 5 seconds, or my next basic attack is going to do extra damage because of this item. All of those are now tracked via green or red bars on the left side of your screen with descriptions. That,
Oh, very
again, just
nice.
clarity is a big thing, right? Being able to know that you're debuffed or you have a buff at a glance is a big thing that can help you kind of get the feel of the game a little bit better.
And knowing the cooldown on it too, like how long it's going to last. That's I didn't even notice that. That's really great.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things, because there's nothing worse than being CC'd and sitting there going like, maybe one day I'll get out of my CC and not knowing how long it lasts,
Yeah.
right? Whether it be hard or soft CC, like you're just sitting there like, okay, eventually one day I might be able to move at normal speed again. So I love that change. And like Malaia's claws, right, that she can deal extra damage for a certain amount of time. That's her first ability. That's a great thing to be able to track yourself on that bar that you really couldn't before as much.
Right.
So it's just all about clarity.
Cool. I like it. I like it a lot. The next thing you had was item rework, the gold efficiency and starting items. Now this you can't really tell from watching unless you watch like a hawk like you used to do.
I was gonna say, I did that all the time. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
you would notice. There's a select few others that would, but most people wouldn't notice this just on the outside looking in. But so tell us a little more about this. What was wrong with the gold at first and the efficiency and all that?
Yeah, so basically a couple of us in the GDA department went through and looked at the gold efficiency. So basically we set a cost for every stat in the game, right? So that, let's say health, it costs 1.5 gold per 1 health, as an example. Every stat for one stat got a gold efficiency, got a gold cost. We then multiplied that up for each item to show what the cost would be of that item if you multiplied all those stats up, and then compared that to what its cost in game was.
Okay.
Or originally, the first pass, our item, the efficiencies were all over the place. Some items had like 15% gold efficiency, and some items had 300% gold efficiency. And so the higher the percentage means that the stats you are getting are better in terms of the cost. So at 300%, you're getting 300% the value in stats
Right.
comparatively to the cost. The lower, the worse. So we went through and they were all over the place. So we set thresholds for each tier of items. So tier 1, 2, and 3. And then said, okay, let's go through and change all the items to fit within this gold efficiency thresholds we've set. And that includes their passives as well. We didn't want to put tier 3 items at like, okay, this one costs 2,000 gold, but it gives you a passive that gives you 3,000 gold worth of stats, right? Like we wanted to find a balance there as well. But went through, put them all in those thresholds, lowered gold costs almost across the board to kind of make that a little bit more balanceable as well. And so that's all been implemented as of the Malaia video. All the items have been changed and the stat values have been changed and their gold costs have been changed and all of that. In addition, something that Ethereal was kind of lacking was starting items of some kind. We really had the tier 1s being starting items, and they didn't feel the best with that regard because they were just stat sticks. And so the beginning of the game felt really slow and kind of sluggish because they were just stat sticks, right? It just comes down to raw stats. So we went through and created a bunch of starting items that will then make that early game feel a little bit better, get you kind of pulling a little bit faster so you can get into those bigger, better items faster as well.
Right on. I know from experience when we first started testing that it was a lot more cost efficient to just build all tier 2s before you even mucked with a tier 3 for real. So that's a nice change that you guys did that and balanced everything out.
Yeah, and we were seeing that as well. In testing, we would see people that would just full buy 6 tier 1s. They wouldn't rush a tier 3 of any kind, then full buy tier 2s. And it wasn't effective. That's not how we wanted the game to be played. Those tier 3s are intended to be the bigger, powerful item, right?
Right.
So we wanted to make sure and bring that all in line. We were surprised though at like how crazy some of the efficiencies were on either end. Um, but so part of that, we actually removed a class of item for the moment while we kind of rework the tree. The artifacts have all been temporarily removed because in their current state, their gold efficiency was wild.
Oh,
They were
really?
some of the ones that, if you included their passive, were giving 400, 500% gold efficiency. And so we couldn't find a way to keep the item the way it was and have the gold efficiency in a balanced state, where otherwise supports are just going to be running around taking artifacts all day long. And even other lanes are going to start taking artifacts. Like it just scaled poorly. So we temporarily pulled them out of testing while we kind of rework that tree and find a better efficiency way to bring it back in.
Right on. The next one here, the Leah stuck in the ground effects.
Yes. So
Very
this was
noticeable that
one,
she isn't just wings sticking out of the ground anymore.
yeah, this was one that was mostly prevalent in the Talos video. But there was an issue with Leah's flight that when she would transition between flight and standing on the ground, her model wouldn't actually rotate. And so because of that, it looked like she was flying in the ground at all times, just face planting everywhere she went.
Yeah.
And so it was just kind of a funny thing, but it was something that definitely got fixed in the meantime because it was ridiculous because you never knew how to hit her. Do you shoot at her feet? Do you shoot where she would be? Like it
It
was
confused me, that's for sure. I was like, can I even hit her right now? Like, is she stuck in the ground?
hmm Yeah,
She's-
absolutely.
It's like the new box grux. Molia.
Oh, bring back box grucks, man. The best.
And Talos stamina. I didn't know there was a problem with Talos' stamina.
So in Talos's video, he was actually using mana. He didn't have his stamina
Ooh,
bar.
I didn't even notice that.
And since then, we've actually instituted his stamina bar, the way it's going to work. So it's constantly refreshing faster than mana. He's got a set amount that slowly increases as he gains levels, significantly less than any mana user. But yeah, so since then, his stamina has actually been implemented into the game comparatively from that first video.
Oh, good stuff. Yeah, I didn't even notice. Global local gold on objectives.
So one thing that's been missing up until that Malaia video is that like towers didn't give any kind of global or local gold. Or they gave a very small amount locally, but they didn't give any global gold. So your team didn't get anything for destroying towers. Just whoever got the last hit. That was it. The only person that benefited from taking down towers. Same thing applied to objectives. So the Wyverns only gave 100 gold. I don't even know what the figure was, but to the person that last hit the Wyvern, it didn't actually give it to everybody that was there. So that was something that was implemented as of the Malaia video, that as things get taken, now everybody in your team benefits either locally or globally, depending on what the objective is that was taken.
Okay, right on. Great change.
It's something that we're really trying to find that balance of game time, right? That we want to have items, buying items feel satisfying, taking down towers feel satisfying and worthwhile, but we don't want to extend the game so far into the future that those things, it takes 45 minutes to play a game, 50 minutes plus, right? So we're part of lowering gold costs and all that was to bring the game times a little bit faster so that as we start adding other things, it can be lengthened a little bit more and still have that room to feel good.
Right on. Yeah, I just want to reiterate because I see a lot of comments about how huge the map is and how confusing the map is. It's really not that bad. Like once you get into playing the game, it's not confusing at all. Like once you learn the locations of the buffs and like rotating and everything, it's about the same as any other MOBA I've ever played. It's really just not that confusing. I know it looks confusing on the surface. It looks like there's a lot there, but it's not that bad.
It's honestly 100%. 100% agree with you. It's one of those things you have to experience, and when you do, it just makes more sense. It's not ridiculous. It's overwhelming to look at, no question about that. But that's something that was a big design choice for us, was making sure the map feels good to play on. And there might be something happening with the map soon that I can't quite fully talk about yet, but keep your eyes peeled because stuff's happening. I don't know.
Get in the Discord. Make sure you stay
Yeah, join the
notified.
Discord. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube to Ethereal Clash of Souls. Follow us on all the socials, all the things.
And here's something we definitely wouldn't notice just from watching the videos is server performance.
So server performance has been gradually getting better throughout the testing. It was one of those things that it worked great in one-on-ones, worked great in two-on-twos, but as you get to 6-on-6, and the server kind of struggled a little bit here and there. We would occasionally see Iran's grab teleporting people across the map because the server panicked and was like, I don't know what to do, and threw them somewhere else. And so it was one of those things that it was hidden in the background a little bit more on those videos, but has been gradually improving. And it's honestly super great now in comparison to how it was. But yeah, server performance has been a big thing we've been improving in the background, just so that the testers, it feels better to play across the board.
Yeah.
Things are more snappy, the reactions are quicker, all that kind of stuff.
Right. Right on. General balance?
Oh,
I know Malaia was an absolute terror at
I don't know what you're talking about. Malaia is perfectly balanced. Please don't nerf her again, Skifter. No, but yeah, so with the pre-alpha 7 going through and making sure they all have defined strengths and weaknesses, but as well as they're not just oppressive when they are strong. That if in a even setting, right, if you're going 2 items to 2 items, same amount of minions, the whole 9 yards, you're going to feel like it's a pretty good fight back and forth, dependent on your strengths and weaknesses. That's something we've been really trying to accomplish with these balances. And honestly, we're getting really close to a really solid kind of set of those balance changes where we're starting to make much smaller tweaks across the board to bring people just barely into that line, wherever that threshold may be for that myth specifically.
Right on. Yeah, it's good to know. I'll miss that old Malaia, just being able to lifesteal my way back to full with 3 hits, but
Absolutely.
And the jungle balance pass, is this the actual jungle minions themselves?
Yeah, so this would be like the amount of gold or XP you get from the jungle camps. The camps themselves have been updated, so some camps actually got changed to have more or less minions depending on where they were put in the map. Because what we were seeing with some of the optimized junglers we have in testing, that they're going through and they're taking 4 camps, getting level 3, and then ganking a lane and getting a kill, right? And they were able to do that in like 3 minutes flat. So, and respectively, the laners are only level 2 or barely about to be level 3 when that happens. And it just feels kind of bad across the board to be a laner, see somebody get way more gold than you, way more XP than you, and then show up and kill you because of it.
Show up with a buff,
awful.
And kill you too, yeah?
If not 2, because you have 4 buffs on the map instead of just the regular 2. So, yeah, usually, I mean, you'd see someone go from red buff to a lizard camp to purple buff to a lizard camp and then gank void, where they're going to get maybe 1 or 2 kills depending on the lane setup there. So it just is really easy to snowball that out of control. So we had to find a way to balance that a little bit more and bring it more in line.
Again, something I never would have noticed, but you definitely would have noticed.
I was one of the people abusing it. Like 4 camps in a gank? Yes, please. I love this.
Absolutely. We already talked about the myths balance. Fall damage.
Yes.
I did notice wasn't in the Malaia video. I think it was in the Leah video. Somebody took fall damage, right?
Yeah, Skifter and I think both Leahs. He was chasing the enemy Leah, and they both took fall damage.
Of
that's
all
something that was implemented
to take fall damage, Leah, the one that can fly.
But that's something that if you're in combat when you're jumping off the lane, that combat timer determines whether or not you're going to take fall damage when you hit the ground. In the Malaia video, I was playing Malaia, and I was surprised beyond all belief that I didn't take fall damage when I jumped off during the one gank. And several people brought it up. I must have perfectly dodged the timer, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. But it is something that we're going to change it so that if you're in combat when you jump off the lane, your combat status doesn't change during the fall.
Okay.
So because the combat timer has to be relatively short to feel better in other scenarios, A lot of the time we were seeing is that you could jump off the lane and your timer would expire before you'd hit the ground because it takes 4 or 5 seconds to fall, right? So when you have a combat timer of 8 seconds, that's really a three. All you need to do is be 3 seconds short on the front end,
Yeah.
and you're good to go to jump off the lanes. So it is something we're changing to implement that your status doesn't change when you're falling, but fall damage wasn't in the Talos video, and I don't even think Dante's, and it got implemented from Leah on.
Right on. And we definitely need fall damage. Otherwise, the separated multi-level lanes are just a gimmick, just a visual gimmick. But
100%.
with the fall damage, then it actually means something. So cool stuff there. Item shop functionality.
Yeah, so the item shop in the Talos video was really bare bones and was basically just a click the item, click purchase. That's all you can do. Just don't try to do anything else because it'll fall apart on you very quickly. But since then, we've added all the filters work, all the items. You can double click to purchase. You can right click to purchase. You can move them around. You can search for items. You can all that kind of functionality is all present now in the item system and the item shop that you can use all of those things to help navigate that menu a little bit better.
Right on.
Sell and undo both work perfectly now as well. You accidentally sell something or you purchase something you don't want to purchase, you can undo that. Perfect, easy way to go there too.
You just redo your purchase without losing a bunch of gold.
Yeah.
Nice. And then what's IK mean? You got movement IK.
IK is the system that's used for momentum.
Oh, okay.
So in the Talos video, a lot of the comments we got were about his movements not feeling right with the way he was actually traversing the ground. That it felt like his feet were sliding because of that. So Skifter went through and actually went on all the pre-alpha 7 myths, adjusted their animation speeds and the timings and the momentum to make that feel significantly better regardless of what direction you're traveling in.
Okay.
It actually feels like, based on your movement speed, you're moving at that speed with your animation as well.
Right on. That's something I've talked about quite a few times. That's one of the reasons Paragon felt so great, is they introduced a new system specifically for that called distance matching. That made your momentum match your animations match your momentum. So
Yeah.
It seems like you guys are gonna have to kind of do it a little bit by hand, but
For now, before we have a more extensive animation library for all the characters with the mocap, we're doing it a little bit more by hand. But once we have the mocap, we can have a lot more of those transition animations to give that feeling an even bigger presence. We were using Paragon actually as the reference for those movement changes of like, how did this feel? Because we agreed that Paragon was almost the gold standard for momentum and that feeling of movement as you're going around the map. So we were watching a lot of Paragon videos and kind of comparing ours to theirs and trying to find that good balance between them.
Good to hear. Wyvern buff redesign, we already talked about that. Jumpy minions, what does that mean? I didn't see any minions jumping.
No, that's twofold. There's two kinds of jumpy minions. The first being that occasionally, because of the way the lanes work and you have to take the portals to get to the lanes, the minions were getting their foot this far stuck in the ground and were like skipping back and forth across the lane trying, because they were in the ground and out of the ground at the same time.
Yeah.
And so it was losing its mind trying to figure out what was going on. So you'd occasionally end up with these jumpy minions after a certain point in the game. That also applies that Marina, there are certain instances in some of the gameplays, you can see Marina using her bubble that would blast minions across the map. That it had some kind of collision attached to it and would just, pop minions across a lane somewhere. And you're like, okay, bye. Well, where are we going? So both of those things have been remedied since. But yeah, that's one thing that was definitely there and has long since been fixed, but it's entertaining at the same time to see. It's kind of like you said before, we've got Ethereal's baby photos. These gameplays are kind of like that a little bit here.
I'm gonna have to go back now and to that Talos video and look for jumpy minions.
Let's
see, map death boxes.
Yes. So you can't just jump off the side of lanes and fall for eternity anymore,
Oh,
which
okay.
used to be a thing when testing started.
That kind of map death box. Gotcha.
Oh
Yes,
yeah.
I do remember that.
So now there is a threshold that if you fall below a certain threshold on the map, you die.
Okay.
It just kills you. You get a death added to your name. It also does work in combat. So if someone was fighting you and you decided you wanted to jump off the lane, they get credit for your death instead.
Oh, okay, good, good.
So it's a better across the board, because in testing occasionally we'd have the trolls that would be like, "Oh, I'm gonna die," and jump off the lane and would just fall forever. And while you were falling, you could back. So
Hmm.
you could press your back animation, go back to base, and nobody would get credit for that. So when the death boxes were actually implemented, we didn't tell anybody. It was kind of a shadow patch that was put into the game
Oh,
until
oh,
the
that's
first person went to go
amazing.
jump off the lane and jumped off and died. It was like, oh, that's a thing now. Cool.
And you can't even complain about it.
Because you know you were doing something
Yeah,
wrong. Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
amazing. I love that. Oh, I totally never just jumped off the edge to avoid dying.
Oh no, nope. I don't know anybody that would do that.
Item passives. I know you guys have had a lot of problems with the item passives. How are things going with them?
Uh, I would say that 99% of the ones that have been implemented are working as intended. Occasionally one of the more obscure ones gets bought and we're like, oh, that one's just broken. Like, we added an extra 0 at the end. So instead of 50 extra damage, it's giving you 500 extra damage. But for the most part, they're all really in a good spot. Those are also getting the slight balance tweaks here and there as we notice things. But since in the Talos video, we had maybe half to 3/4 of the item passives in the game, like actually working, functional, the whole 9 yards.
Mhm.
And as of the Malaia video, we've got 95% of them, 99% of them. We're much, much closer to having all the items passives working well, balanced, the whole 9 yards.
Right on. Awesome. That's good to hear, because there were some of them that were just turning people into monsters.
Absolutely. I mean, we had, I think it was Bow of Hysteria, which is when you're close to an enemy
Mhm.
myth, you gain attack speed. Bow of Hysteria would take you from whatever attack speed you were at to the cap by itself,
Yeah.
because it was one of those that had an extra 0 on it. And so you walk up to somebody and you're just shredding them instantaneously. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's not intended. That's not good.
The first I experienced that was on Malaya, and I was just like, ah! And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
what's going on? How did I get so fast?
Absolutely.
And here's one that I definitely noticed, and it's really cool to see: portals from void to side lanes. So
Yes.
instead of having to go all the way back, and also the portals themselves, you have actual portals now instead of it's just you're walking into a wall and then all of a sudden you're in another lane.
Yeah. That's true. The portals themselves are in there because Talos didn't have those, but they were in Dante's as of
Mhm.
the next video. But then the portals from actually in Void Lane to the side lanes were a huge change for us, because rotation times were infinitely better because you didn't have to go back to base first.
Right.
Right now you can go through and take the purple buff and then jump up to fire lane and go take red buff without taking 15 to 20 seconds in the meantime. So that was a big change for us that rapidly sped up the game. But overall has been super, super great. It gives non-flying junglers more of a chance in the jungle. Across the board, it just feels really good.
Yeah, I think that's something we all expected to see, and then when it wasn't in like the very first iterations of the game, it was kind of like, what?
Mhm.
But yeah, pretty cool to see. So I think that's about it. That's all you had written down. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss on that, Jelly?
Not that comes to mind. I'm sure there are more changes and fixes we've done. It's one of those that we've done so many. I just kind of was like going through like, yeah, these are the definite ones that I off the top of my head can figure out.
Yeah.
I went through some of our patch notes internally to figure out, okay, yeah, oh yeah, this changed. Oh yeah, this one, all that kind of stuff. So lots of changes always happening. And the big thing I think for us to see internally, and even me as a old community member, is the amount of meaningful changes made over such a short amount of time.
Oh yeah.
Going from the Talos video, which aired at the end of July, to now we're in the middle of September, and you've got as many changes as we've just talked about. That's a huge change and a huge amount of fixes and work that has gone into all of those things.
Yeah.
Which is really cool to see.
Not to throw Strange Matter under the bus, but look at how long it took for them to fix their UI. Like that was a big thing, was their UI, and it took forever for them to do anything with that thing, and you guys just like immediately fixed it. Like,
yep, we said we want to change the UI, and within a couple weeks we had it up and running and implemented in the whole 9 yards.
The game just looks markedly better from the Talos video to the Malaia video. Like just everything looks smoother and cleaner and more functional, I think. So great job guys.
Yeah, good job, UG.
Now, the community corner, you said you wanted to see what kind of questions people had for the community corner, right?
Yeah, so anybody that has questions for the community corner, there is a channel in the Discord that you can go into. If you look at the announcement, it also references that channel. Ask questions, right? The community corner may or may not be featuring somebody that's on Enter the Ether, so I may or may not have a say on whether or not those questions make it in. So if you have any questions, leave comments on this video, leave comments in that Discord channel, and I will pull as many as I can into that community corner so we can get a lot of these community questions answered as much as possible.
I tried to think of questions that were non-obtrusive, but I couldn't. Because like the one that immediately comes to mind, of course, is, Ethereal win. Like when are we getting it? But like you can't just answer that one. I don't know. My biggest question is this mocap suit. Do you have an update on the mocap thing?
I do. So I actually talked to our mocap team. They reached out to the studio that we bought the suit from, and it is still on track to be delivered in October, which is the same as our last update. So there has not been any further pushes of any kind. But so by October, we should be starting to get that process up and running and get a lot of those animations better feeling, more fleshed out, the whole 9 yards. And that applies to future characters as well. Not having to do future characters by hand is going to be a big improvement in the terms of the pipeline.
That's awesome. I really look forward to seeing the animations improve. I think that's when this game is really going to take off, as far as when we start showing people the gameplay. Once they see those animations are nice and smooth too.
Yep.
It'll be set.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Right now the game feels fun without those animations, and if the animations just push it to that next level, it's just going to be incredible.
And you have Patreon announcement on here. Did you guys announce that?
We did.
When did that happen?
Part of that announcement.
God, I'm just
with the community
missing
corner.
Everything.
And Mangoose doesn't read my announcements either. It's fine. Nobody reads my announcements. It's okay. But in that same announcement, we actually talked about that the Patreon will go live as of October 1st. And so it's going to have the cumulative rewards like you and I have talked about in the past.
Right on.
And it's going to have a lot of other stuff and some exclusive content. It's right now, I can say we've got about 2.5 to 3 months worth of content backlogged that is almost ready to go for that Patreon. So there's going to be a consistent flow of information. That'll translate some to the community, some will be Patreon exclusive, but yeah, it's going to be really exciting to see how all that goes and going forward as well.
Awesome. That's really good to see. I want to see that. I want to see it explode, and like that was the main concern, is people wanted to see a steady flow of information if they were to participate in the Patreon. So it looks like you're set. You got it all planned out. Good stuff.
Oh yeah.
I'll definitely be part of that Patreon, so that's going to be good times.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm excited to see what everybody thinks about it. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears of mine have gone into it because I wanted to make sure it was all like tip-top shape going in. So I'm excited to see what everyone thinks.
Right on.
And if it doesn't go well, it wasn't my fault. I had nothing to do with it. I disappeared, faded into the background.
It was my fault if it goes wrong.
Yeah, Mangoose. Blame Mangoose.
Mangoose. All right, so I think that's about all I had for this week. Do you have anything else, Jelly?
I think that's it for me as well. Keep an eye on the announcement channel for Ethereal, right? Big announcements happen all the time. They're going to get more frequent rather than less frequent. More gameplays are coming out soon. Those are in the works. And yeah, just lots of exciting stuff.
I'll be happy to see some new gameplays for sure. I think a lot of people want to see Marina, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
The support folks need to rise up and demand that we see some Marina gameplay.
Yeah, oh man.
And demand jumpy minions back. I want to see Marina blowing minion waves all to hell with her bubble.
Absolutely.
But I think that's going to close it out for this week. Again, great job, UG team, for all the improvements you've made in such a short span of time. And as they get testers in and they get more feedback, and as we move forward with this game, it's just going to get even better and better. The mocap suit with better animations. So I hope you're looking forward to enter the ether. Hope you're looking forward to that next week. Hope you're looking forward to Ethereal. Hope you all join us as we enter the ether. Hope you're looking forward to this show.
I hope you look forward to it every week. We don't care about the game. Get out of here.